Yes, people, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. Here today with channel debutant, I believe. He's new, he's wet behind the ears in the content space, but he's an au naturel with the lingo. Luke from Spotlight on Spurs is here. We got loads of things to talk about. We got record transfers coming in and potentially a record outgoing transfer window. All sorts of names, all sorts of permutations and consequences. And you know what? It wouldn't be a cheeky Wednesday evening without the lovely chat in the house. Before I come to them and say, how you doing, people? Lukey, how are you, mate? Welcome to the channel.
Cheers. Thank you very much for having me on. Yeah, I am doing well, mate. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm all right, mate. You're not too bad. Although Bugsy Malone's, she's something wrong with her today. I took her for a walk just before the show started, and then she just put her feet down, didn't want to go. She's been miserable all day. So I don't know if she's eaten something that's making her start. I don't know, whatever. But I hope she's okay. So I'm a little bit worried about that. But I'm good, mate. How's your summer looking? Are you excited? Are you excited about a new clean chapter, a new clean page, a new dawn under the Tottenham batshit crazy universe that we seem to have chosen to walk within?
I was chosen. I didn't choose. I was chosen.
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice in this matter. But yes, 100%. I'm always optimistic at the start of the window. The optimism sometimes peters out towards the end, but let's start optimistic. Some of the names we're about to go through, I'm sure, is going to be some big names, and I'm hoping that they come to fruition. But yeah, let's see.
Before I get into that, man, I just want to get a little bit, get to know you, let the chat get to know you, because I hope this is the first of many. I want to get your sort of stance on a couple of topics just broadly.
Yep.
Don't have to go, excuse me, into any sort of major depth, but just so we understand where you're coming from when we get the various takes that are coming out later. Sort of Tottenham Hotspur, Daniel Levy, that sort of like, the godfather of the club. Is your stance on him, like most of the people in the chat, that is somewhere between the geezer's a prick and needs to leave, or in an ideal world, he'd step aside, but keep him on in the business world? Or are you someone that is more, actually, I think Daniel Levy's done a good job, but I think most people, sort of only look for the bad?
I'm definitely not a Levy out, anyone in 100%. I try to be quite balanced on my views with everything. I think what he's done to date for this club, I think I've seen you talk about it plenty of times about raising the expectations. I remember going back to the days when we had Gary Doherty at centre-back, Anthony Gardner's and them sort of players, and we was finishing. This season would have been quite a normal season for us, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I can appreciate what he's done for the club. I am frustrated on many occasions when he doesn't take that extra step, even when we talk about it all the time about taking gambles, but you can be calculated in your gambles. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like he needs to do that a little bit more. I keep saying he needs to live up to the club motto a little bit more, but yeah. I'm certainly not let's just get anybody in, anybody's better, because you've only got to look at the Man Uniteds of this world and what they're doing to staff members and things like that. I don't agree with that. So my ideal scenario is that he changes, or we get some sort of investment that allows him to kind of release them purse strings, because what he's done from the commercial aspect, I think, is absolutely outstanding. The whole criticism about the stadium being used so often, I get what people mean, but for me, it doesn't make sense to have a £1 billion stadium used 25 days a season. It don't make no sense to me.
Yeah. That used to be a stick to hit Daniel Levy with, until it became sort of an untenable position to be criticising the notion that you're using a giant asset on days when it doesn't affect the Tottenham, like the football club. As soon as that was kind of made clear, I think everyone walked away from that argument pretty quick. But mate, one of the sides, and the reason why I'm going down this path with you, mate, is because there's another story out. That's broken. It broke last night. Kieran Maguire, football finance guy, on Sky Sports. And if you haven't seen it, chat, I'm not sure I can bring it up. Maybe I can on Twitter. But he, either way, we're going to be talking about it at 8:30 on Football Inc. And you guys are going to get redirected. So if you're interested more in the total football stuff, then hang around till the end of the show. And then Johnny and I are going to go through that stuff alongside other batshit crazy transfer stories where Arsenal look like they're panicking and shitting themselves because they were all on Sesko. Now suddenly they're trying to get in front of Man United on Gyökeres. It's to me, it's like I don't think they know what they want, or maybe that they can't get what they want. And I think Arteta's starting to panic. Nobody panic. Can't do it again. But the reason I bring it up is about Levy is because, Luke, I think that for me, I've always maintained that like when you're fighting against levels of debauchery in the game around the inability for rules to be made that can't be just walked through, like, you've got a tunnel that could fit a bus. And we've spoken about Chelsea doing it. We've spoken about Newcastle not doing it, but probably will do it in the future. Newcastle have done it a little bit, but not really. Aston Villa doing it. Man City doing it. Arsenal to some degree with their loans and things. But Manchester United, this story that's just broken today, again, we'll speak about it in more detail later, but this is the reason why Daniel Levy, for me, either has to get on board this sort of dark arts of football finance or hand over control to people that are willing to do it. Because Kieran Maguire, football finance expert, was asked essentially, there's asked on Sky Sports, why is it that Manchester United are able to spend all this money on these players so soon when they're supposed to be broke and there's no European football? And he basically gave the first two justifications like they were more important or bigger deals than the third. He went, well, first of all, they're Manchester United, right? And they've got brands and, it's the biggest brand in world football, so they're always going to create money. Yeah, fine. But at the end of the day, they still don't have the revenues coming in like they usually do. So how are they able to spend more money than they currently should be able to? That's obvious. Number two, they probably won't do as bad next year as they have done this year. Therefore, somehow that's relevant. And then three, by the way, side note, in case, people didn't realise, Manchester United PLC, the actual football club, that might have lost £156 million last year, but because that's handled in America, and for PSR reasons, they have to have it registered in the UK. They've got a different company called Red Devils Ltd or whatever it is, and that company has only lost 50 million, so they're £100 million better off. And he said it like it was nothing, but that £100 million better off, amortized over 5 years. Well, you haven't got to be a genius to work out what that sort of level, what that additional spend can mean, right? And he said it like it was nothing, but it's fucking massive. It's absolutely huge. How can you have a company that is essentially the same thing? One registered here that loses money, the other one registered here that loses 100. Where's the £100 million gone? You know what
Especially
I mean?
when there's some regulation that's taking place in football to stop losses and things like that. But he essentially was answering the question that all fans, whether you're a financial expert or not, how are they managing to spend this amount of money? And everybody knew there was something that wasn't quite right. Probably didn't realize it was gonna come like that. It was probably more like fiddled stuff as opposed to just another company that have basically swallowing all their losses. But I think you might have said it before. It's Daniel Levy is kind of the way that he's approached this has always been kind of like the figurehead for these regulations, and then for him to go and do something like this, it won't sit very well. So I think he's pushed himself into a bit of a corner, and he was probably relying on these regulations being stringent that you weren't able to just walk through them, basically.
100%, mate. And that to me is problematic. Like, either he has to get off the hill that he's dying on. And we'll talk about Ange in a second. But either he has to get because Ange died on a stupid hill for me, and he didn't need to, and it cost him his job. And a lot of fans are mad about it. And I want to get your take on Ange as well before we move into the transfer world. But to me, Daniel Levy is dying on a really silly hill now. He doesn't need to. He's trying to push these, he's trying to be the poster boy. And look, if he was to kind of just get on board some dark arts, then there'll be an element of the fan base that say, why do we have to put up with 5 years of your... I mean, I'll even take I always take the mud for Daniel Levy in the community from people that go, Butler promised us PSR and FFP was going to be a game changer. Well, I thought it was. I just didn't realise the levels of intelligence that are in those boardrooms and figuring out ways to dance around it. But either way, in the most recent Premier League owners meeting, they got together, and the notion that the idea of having a vote as to whether or not selling your hotels or third-party properties to yourself and then loaning it back, that wasn't even floated as an idea because there wasn't enough interest. There wasn't enough kind of ambition amongst any of the teams to get anywhere near the 14 votes necessary. And so, I've been saying for for a long time that like all they need is 2 more people to come across the Oki to join the cabal of people that are voting against, and then kiss goodbye to any further tightening. And it looks like they've already got that, because they're now that they don't even have the votes. Like, if you're not going to get, there's no point in having a vote if there's no interest in the vote in the first place. And it looks to me like if they can't even get enough people's interest in making that rule work around selling third-party companies to yourself, then we're fucked, Luke. Like, there's no chance.
At valuations,
basis, like Daniel Levy's got to step aside and let someone else come in who wants to do that shit if he wants to keep his name clean from the mud that is, you know, a U-turn on the dark arts, or fuck the reputation and just get on board the dark arts, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. The horse has bolted now. So if everybody's doing it, you've got to join in. I mean, it's not really spoken about now, but if you go back to the Everton Villa when they was all trying to avoid PSR, some of the signings that were taking place, it's just like there's absolutely no way that someone's played under 21 football, never made a senior appearance, is selling for 25 million quid, but then you're buying one of their own for 20. It was just like, what is this all about? The whole idea around
those players had never kicked a minute of professional football. Mm-hmm. And they were being sold for 25 or 30 million quid to each other. Yep. It's obscene.
The whole idea of the youth football and the whole idea of all the different rules that we put in place is trying to promote youth and trying to get youth into first teams and everything else. And the PSR, because the way that it's handled, means that they're even more of a commodity than anything else. We see that with Conor Gallagher. It's just like he was pushed out the door on the basis that you was pure profit, whereas actually it should be, we never want to sell you. You've come through the academy. You should want to be here for 10, 15 years, but it's flipped the other way.
100%, mate. Listen, I'm sure we can loop this back into a bit of the conversation later on. Before we get, I want to ask you now about Ange. I know you said backstage, like, why are we still talking about him? He's yesterday's news, but I do want to get your take on, you know, how attached, how aligned were you with him? When, if you weren't, when did that change? And then obviously about the Thomas Frank signing that still hasn't been confirmed officially, but it's due either tonight or tomorrow, probably, or Friday. So, and then obviously after that, boys and girls, we're going to be moving swiftly into some transfer news, views, and clues for you. Before I ask you that though, Luke, guys, there's nearly 800 people here already. We've been going 10 minutes. Love to see it. Thank you very much for this Wednesday night support. Please smash the like button. Please get on the subscribes. And I'm about to be posting the links for Luke's channel and for Football Inc., where you'll be able to find me in about an hour and a half's time with Johnny. And if you haven't already, then please make sure you subscribe to Lukey and obviously to Football Inc. Here's the first one. Oh, I'll put it the wrong. I'll put it back in the private chat. Sorry, excuse me. Lukey's a lovely guy, fledgling channel, just getting started in the world. I actually didn't realise, but I was on the same stream with him. Wasn't that long ago, was it, mate? It was only a couple of months ago.
12 weeks I've been going.
12 weeks. And how are you getting on? How's the channel going? You enjoying it?
Yeah, I love it. I reached 600 subs today, but just doing weekly vids, weekly live streams. Had some unbelievable support. Some of the guests that have come on have been far above me, far bigger than me. But it's been great. It's like going down the pub and having a chat with your mate, talking about football. What more can you ask for?
The only thing I could ask for is not having the addictive. Because I do this every day, and this is like I drink now every day. It's becoming a bit of a problem if I'm entirely.
I've gone with Rubicon Mango.
Nice. Guys, if Luke is on 600 subs, can we get into 700 subs by the end of this stream? It might be a stretch, but listen, there's 800 of you watching. If 1 in 8 of you could just, if you're watching via a place where you have access to the comment, if you're logged into your YouTube channel, please just click that link right there, and then just literally just open another tab for you, and then smash the subscribe. It won't even take you away from the stream, but let's get Lukey up. At least to 650 anyway. We'll see where we're going. Keep an eye on the subs as we go through, mate. Right, mate. Ange, talk to me about Ange. What's your take on that whole story? When did you change your mind on Ange? If you did, did you back him to the end?
So when I joined YouTube, it was very much from an Ange sort of perspective. I wasn't a fan of changing mid-season. I could understand some of the issues that people had with it, and most of the time I kind of agreed with them. However, I looked on it as trying to see more of the positive. So for me, it was always a case of it should get till the end of the season, and we should kind of look at. They made that big announcement where they're going to do a full review at the end of the season, which you should be doing. I bet Man City do that even when they've gone and won the treble. That should just be a standard regardless. Cool. But I was very much sort of like, I think we should keep him till the end of the season. The game where he cupped his ears, I thought there's no going back. I thought I was expecting the dreaded announcement the next day. When he stayed on, I said got up right up to Europa League final, and I was like, I think he's going to walk. I think he's going to have had enough. He walks with his head held high, and he'll go. And then obviously after the final, with the comments afterwards, I thought he's going to stay, and I thought we would keep him. I thought we would give him another few months. I had a theory that Levy really wanted Poch, and that maybe he would try and hold out for one more season, and we'll just kind of see how we kind of go. However, he obviously pulled the trigger. I was, after the season, I kind of said, I think me and you had a similar sort of vibe about it, really, was that if we're going to sack him, we need to bring in a manager that's Champions League level, that's real top level. And because otherwise it's almost like a start of another bit of a project sort of thing. So I wasn't on board with Frank initially. The more and more you read about it, the more and more it comes to fruition. As I said to you backstage, Ange is gone now. So my thing was always, if we're going away from Ange, it needs to be levels above him. But now we don't have a manager. He's gone. I'm not now going to sit here and go, well, Frank should not be the manager, etc., etc. There's a lot of positives that Frank can bring to the club, no doubt. However,
what do you think they are?
I think we will look better. We will look more structured. There'll be less holes. There was simple adjustments that needed to be made that Ange made 3 games till the end of the season instead of making them far early on. I think we'll look more solid. We'll look better defensively. Hopefully the injuries won't be as much. He's a great guy. There's been a lot of talk about, the players are not going to have it. They're fuming about Ange. And it's like, you need to just watch 5 minutes of Frank to know he's a people person. He's not going to have a personality issue. He is not going to walk in there and they're not going to take to him. Other managers, that might have been a problem, but not Frank. It's simply not going to happen. But my concerns are Europa League football or European football, which he hasn't had. And I've got a lot of people that kind of shoot me down for that and say, oh, well, he's done this and he's done that. But the facts are, until he's in it, you're not going to know. You can say with your best judgment and what you think, but you can't go off any previous experience. So they're the concerns for me.
It's not a weakness, is it? It's just an unknown, right?
Yeah. It is an unknown. But for me, I was wanted to make sure we was the less unknowns possible. And that is quite a big unknown, because rightly so, everyone launched that at Ange, saying, well, you can't compete on 4 fronts. Well, then you've employed someone that you've got no idea if they can compete, because they've never done that sort of thing. So, as I say, I'm certainly not like there's been some which is absolutely crazy, gone from Ange into Frank out. I'm certainly not of that ilk. It's almost like he's the start of a new project. We'll see how it goes. And I hope everyone's the sort of saying, listen, it's like when we get a new player in, you can't judge him after 20 minutes. You know what I mean? He's going to have to come in. He's going to have his own ideas. And also, and I'm sure we'll probably speak about it, if he doesn't get back like several of the other managers haven't done, or he doesn't get the right people in, there's already been talks about whether or not he's even going to have for the final say on all transfers. How much can you judge these managers if they're working with one arm or hands tied behind their back, however you want to put it?
Do you know, let me... So I've been positing a theory, right, with regards... Well, first, before I come to that, with regards Frank, you're talking about the kind of like you wanted the fewest unknowns in a manager as possible. Were you on the page that the most realistic candidate that had the fewest unknowns was probably Oliver Glasner?
Yes.
So
I kind of said when it was all first came about, and bearing in mind this was I went on Savage Stream, I spoke to Sava about it, and I was like, the Iriola is too similar. He's got too many issues that are very similar to Ange, and the football's very similar, and we don't know about European football. So out of the Iriola, Thomas Frank, and Silva, I was more Frank than anybody else. But I kept saying, if we go and get Glasner, he's done the European side, he's done the Premier League side. We know he improves. Probably got players that suit his system. So Glasner was the one in the Premier League where I was like, if we go and get him, then I think that there is less unknowns, and I'd be happy with that.
I just wonder whether, because I agree with what you're saying, I wonder whether, like, not that I'm in any way advocating that Daniel Levy contemplated this scenario that I'm about to present playing out, and then as a consequence of thinking there was a sniff, delayed any potential move for Thomas Frank, because we were all getting so impatient with the lack of sort of movement and news. But I just wonder whether Crystal Palace's potential rejection from the Europa League because of their ownership struggles might have created enough boardroom and managerial sort of disharmony at Palace whereby Oliver Glasner was more willing to leave if that outcome turned out to be true. But unfortunately, we'll never know. We might end up knowing if at the tribunal or whatever it is they have to go through, then Palace do get rejected. Then I wonder if there's another managerial, shake-up and Oliver Glasner leaves, then maybe we will have sort of, potentially shot our load too soon. But at the same time, I'm not advocating that Daniel Levy sort of waited around to find out because we'd have been losing our minds just to then find out the Palace get in anyway, and then it's all a dead story. But with that fewest unknowns narrative, there is something and again, this isn't in any way, chat. I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying this as a mechanism to like invoke some sort of negativity. I'm not. I'm open-minded to any outcome, and I'd love everyone's input, especially yours, Lukey. But when we're talking about like what are the positives of Thomas Frank, I mentioned this on Sabbath's show earlier. One of the things that people say is he's a developer of talent, right? Look what he did with Vissa. Look what he did with Rico Henry. Look what he did with Mbeumo. And essentially that argument is predicated on the fact that Brentford work on shoestring budgets. They bring in £5 to £10 million players. They play under him for a few years, and then they move on for 40, 50 million quid. Therefore, he develops these players into top draw players. And he could do the same at Tottenham. And I hope that's the case. And I'm not saying it isn't the case. But there is like a parallel argument, a parallel conversation that everyone will agree on, that Brentford have smart odds. They have their Matthew Benham, their owner, that he uses smart odds. And he was best mates with Tony Bloom at Brighton, who had Star Lizard. In fact, he worked with Bloom at Star Lizard. They fell out, best mates, furious, now worst enemies. He comes off, starts a competitive company and buys a competitive football team, do exactly the same model and are essentially the same size football club, right? You could write a movie about that story. It's hilarious. I don't know why Brentford and Brighton aren't more like rivalries at the fan level, because their owners should be kind of creating that, right? It'd be good for business. But if there's an argument that it's the talent ID that is not, he's a part of, Thomas Frank is definitely a part of that model, but he isn't the creator of it. He's utilizing other people's data, that their systems, and as a part of how to make sense of it for sure. But if you can't know what you don't know with regards to the Brentford story, but you can look at Brighton, which is a comparable story, and go, well, is there a manager there that was given the credit for developing talent, and then he left, went somewhere else, and did he have the same success, and are the stories similar? And Graham Potter's a great example because he was credited with Moises Caicedo, Alexi McAllister, Evan Ferguson to a degree, Mark Cucurella, all these players, right? That come through, are cheap players, went on to be sold for more. I'm not sure about Ferguson, we'll see. But so he went to Chelsea where he was given shitloads of young players. Did he develop any of them? No. It was an unmitigated disaster. Now, there's a lot of other things going on at Chelsea at the time. That was the start of the Todd Bowley story, and he was just buying up anyone. He didn't know what he was doing, and yada, yada, yada. So you don't necessarily know if you can make a logical jump from that argument. But he then went to West Ham, that is also known for trying to develop young players. And in the last 24 months at West Ham, there hasn't been any of that. Their success stories have been Kudos, Jared Bowen, and Paquetá, all of whom were bought in by the club. Jared Bowen was already a good player before Potter got there. Kudos and Paquetá are the same. So I know he's only been there 6 months, but so far, West Ham's story under Potter's been shit. But yeah, if you go back to Potter at Brighton, he's credited with being a worldie who got the best out of young players. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying this is the case for Thomas Frank, but when people say he develops young players and the evidence is in the history of the transfers, you can't know because Frank's been there for 7 years, whether that's true. We'll only find out in the future. But with Potter, you can. And the story is not the same when he goes elsewhere. So I'm just wondering whether or not, are we potentially putting the cart before the horse here, thinking that Thomas Frank is an expert football player development coach because it's primarily down to the luxury of having that data system? It's a really fucking long question. I'm sorry, but I had to kind of preface it.
No, 100%. And that was kind of my points when I first came around the scene, saying that, hang on a minute, we are talking about bringing players and managers in at settled clubs. Spurs are not a settled club. We haven't been for years. So to turn around and go, well, actually, it worked here and it's under completely different circumstances. And let's just say Tottenham are in the top 10% of clubs and Brentford are in the top 20%. It's easier to buy players for a Brentford because there's a bigger pool for them to go and buy it. So they've also got as you said, they've got the settled recruitment. I mean, we're looking at the coaches at the moment that we're linked with, and most of them have been there for years and years and years. So they're intertwined with everything that goes on. And at Spurs, it's a completely different kettle of fish. So I don't buy into this premise that like a lot of people have said, oh well, what he's done there is really, really good, so therefore he steps up. That's not always how it works. And yes, people have gone, well, what about Poch? Well, does Dyche then deserve that same credit? Because Dyche done perfectly well at Burnley. Should he? So it doesn't always work like that. And there isn't just a linear line with football. He could come to Spurs if he doesn't get the players he wants, or they don't go down the routines that he's used to, get the recruitment teams in. Therefore, he's going to become a completely different situation than at a Brentford, where, let's be real, he's probably the king of the castle. He probably has the last say on absolutely everything. Whereas at Tottenham, there's going to be a bit more dictated to him. So it's a completely different. You can't just look at one and say this is going to happen here. It just doesn't work like that.
100%, mate. Yeah, I completely agree. It's not a template, but it is food for thought. I hope that we're getting the guy. And by the way, the inverse of that whole argument I just made. Let's say that it's a bit of both, right? Let's say that it's on some degree the data for sure helps, and then he's also a brilliant man manager, motivator, and talent developer, right? Let's say it's 60-40, one way or the other, whatever. There's another potential benefit of Thomas Frank coming to Tottenham, is that he has got 7 years of experience working with a fantastic data team, and he's bringing a lot of those guys with him. Now, they might be leaving the data behind, but Star Lizard and Smart Odds don't have access to data that Tottenham can't get hold of.
Yeah,
right. All that data is available to everybody. So, like, if you pay enough money and you know what you're doing with it, it's how you utilize the data. Now, one of the stories that Johnny always tells me is that what he's been made aware of, or what he's been told, is that when we put the data team together, or that data model together, that Johan Lang sort of puts the tail wagging the dog, in as much as he identifies the players that he thinks he wants and then runs it past the data team and says, can you put this through your model and check whether these actually tick the boxes? Which is not the way you should be doing it. You should be asking, 100%. What is it we need? What are the holes? Where can we get more of this or less of that? And then you find 50 players that might fit the bill, and then from there you then shortlist them, right?
Yeah.
And so, on the presumption that the data isn't unique or proprietary and that everyone can get hold of it, it's just how you use it, then even if Thomas Frank is part of his successes has been because of that data, then is it also a benefit in bringing him in that we can actually get far better at doing the thing that we probably all been wanting us to be able to do, which is act a bit more like Brentford and Brighton when we come to the bottom end of our transfer budgets. When it comes to those £10 million spray and plays, you don't want to act entirely like Brentford or Brighton. You want to be able to go and buy the monsters when you need them, but at the same time, go and identify the Victor Froholds or whoever, and maybe Thomas Frank can come in with his team and actually make us really good at that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and if that's the way that we're doing it, well, the whole point of going through the data is that essentially you don't identify the players; they kind of identify themselves. So if you're identifying the players and then trying to fit the stats, it's almost like you've got your conclusion, and now I need to go and find how I get to that conclusion. Whereas that's not the whole point of it. As you said, it's literally a case of go out there, get whatever sort of data you need for a particular position, say, and then the names will come to you. So it's okay having all the data in the world, as you said, but if you've got, let's just say the way Brentford do it is a specialist. If we go and get a specialist and the way that they're doing it is completely different, albeit we do need that to go a level up. I said this on Twitter, and it was literally a kind of throwaway comment in such when the whole Paratici links, and everyone, I think Langer's got quite a bad reputation by some section of the Spurs fans, And I think that it's quite. I think it's slightly unfair, and kind of backing on with Ange's criticism about how much he spent. I feel like a lot of the players, or some of the players we've bought, are not for the now. They're not they're not for Ange to look good or Lang to look good now. Therefore, in 3 or 4 years, hopefully they become and develop and become beasts. And if that is the sort of way that we're trying to go, then there is a problem there in terms of how do you then get players that are here and now? And I suggested that Paratici coming in, identifying all of the first team, and then Langer taking on a young players under 21 Berghvalls and your youth team. You kind of get the best of both worlds. Obviously, there might be some sort of contradiction there in terms of what they're working on, but I think Langer and the stats wise, looking at the young players that can prosper in a couple of years, I can't imagine there being much data where you look at a 28-year-old that kind of goes, actually, if we buy him now when he's 29, he's going to all of a sudden. So you would imagine it's more targeted at the younger sort of generation. So I wanted a world where a Paratici goes out and gets the ready-made that we're screaming for, and Langer is almost in charge to say, right, our youth systems and our young bods are the ones that you're in charge of. Here's your, almost like a football manager. Here's your budget. Go work with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
easy
100%.
to say, but
I think there's probably one example that screams out to me of what you were talking about, like an older player that has been identified using the data as a key sort of plug filler or a value amplifier, if you like. And that was at Brighton. I think it was Danny Welbeck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they got hold of him, most people were like, "Really, him? Like, you know, like he's yesterday's news." But actually, obviously, the data said something around how, like, there's a weakness in the Brighton model, and they're looking for someone that's better at this particular type of thing than the market value will suggest he's worth, right? And so that's how their model works. It's essentially like they do it for betting. They look at all the data and go, based on all these little micro minutia levels of data, this price of, like, I don't know, West Brom to beat West Ham seems to be misvalued here, and therefore let's take our investors' money and stick it in that, because actually, if you think about this, and there's all these 1,000 different micro points, then it suggests that price point is misvalued. And I guess they're doing the same thing with Danny Welbeck. They found him, but I totally take the point that, generally speaking, you know, it's probably just used to find the latest 16 to 20-year-olds that might be hiding in an area of the world that doesn't have significant amounts of eyeballs on it or attention. And hopefully, like I say, hopefully, you know, Tottenham can. It's certainly an area that we're starting to do better in. Like, and I agree with you that I think the people that are. It's almost the same thing with the Ange debate, right? There's a lot of people that are sycophants, people that are Paratici boys. They love Paratici. They love him so much, and they're so embedded in that belief that therefore the next guy was never going to be good enough. You know, and you were saying, like, earlier about people sort of want Thomas Frank to fail. It kind of, like, to use like a relation, not that I'm sort of skilled in relationships at all, but I can imagine it's someone who's been dumped that then has the rebound, goes on the rebound or whatever they call it, and then gets the next girl, but actually resents her because she's not the ex. You know what I mean? And a little bit sort of toxic. And I think that's that might be sort of similar with people, how people feel about any people that are attached to anything to do with Tottenham Hotspur. Like, when Sonny leaves, I'm sure there'll be a lot of Koreans that maybe don't love Yang as much as that they love or like him dislike him disproportionately to what he should be valued at, because he's not Sonny. You know?
100%. And as I say, I try to. We all get caught up in emotions. I mean, that's why we love football. Do you know what I mean? So, but I try to be as balanced as possible. And yeah, there is negatives in certain sides, but you'll have that on everyone. So, and it's the same thing with Ange. Is that again? I put a tweet out saying that you do understand that there is nobody that's wrong here, because the people that back Ange, he's walked away with a trophy, something we haven't done. And the people that are saying, but the league form isn't good enough, they are also right. The league form isn't good enough. So you're almost arguing two facts where you're both right, but you should see it from my point of view. And the problem is some people are dismissing the other side and going, but that doesn't really matter if you've got this. And it's like, well, if I look at it the other way, that doesn't matter because we've got this. So, and it's the same thing with Paratici. I mean, he's had some absolute stinkers, Nuno being the one of them. And by all accounts, you can't believe all reports, but he initially apparently sat down with Levy and kind of showed him why Nuno was the guy. And it couldn't have been further from the guy. So you can't sit there and blame. And again, it happened with Ange. I see it. Every single player we signed that was terrible was on him. And he and it, as I say, you've got to have some sort of balance and understanding to it. That yes, again with Levy as well. I know you've argued the point about him taking the credit for the Europa League, and 100% he deserves a portion of that. And that was what I was saying about Ange from the very start. Quite a lot with what happens with Ange if he goes. A lot of the changes that are required at this club are still required, whether he's the manager or he's not. So the medical team needs to be reviewed. Our transfer targets, the way that we operate needs to change. So everything needs to be reviewed, whether he's here or he isn't. Sorry. So again, I feel like some people, they've, similar to what you said, our strategy is they've got their conclusion and they'll use all the facts and stats that fit that conclusion, but won't factor in the separate stuff that maybe go against it.
Yeah, or the weightings are disproportionately applied, right? Yeah. There's so many buts. In fact, I'm not sure what's worse, like a group of people that say but, or a group of people that say and. Because if you're doing the but thing, it's dismissive to the other side's take, right? Like,
this is more important than that.
This is far more important. Yeah. And if it's yes and, then that's basically an echo chamber where you've got a load of people that all feel the same way. And then when one person says something and covers like 90% of the talking points, the next person has to say something unique to add value to the conversation. So they start to then extrapolate and extend and exaggerate whatever their point is. And then by the time you get to the end of that daisy chain, you end up with people that are creating conspiracy theories because there's nothing left that hasn't already been said. And they're extending like the wild takes because they still need to find value in their own opinion, and there's nothing left that can provide that in reality, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we see that with a lot of the stuff that like the players, for instance, coming out and back in Ange, that was everyone kept saying, they're employed by the club, that's what they're going to do. And my take was always they will toe the line. They won't sit there and say this guy is not the guy, but the way that they've come out afterwards, you can tell that he had some sort of a connection with them. Maybe not all of them, but again, that happens with everybody. There's no manager that gets along with every single player in a football squad. That just does not happen. So, but again, it's about opinions, and it creates content. So,
100%, mate. That's the main thing in there. As long as you can create content. Well, on that note, people, I don't know what it is, but in the last month or whatever, you guys are starting to call me clickbait. And nothing, just for what it's worth, I hope that clickbait really means click-worthy, because I hope that you enjoy the content. But nothing has changed in my content. I've always done the same thing. I talk about whatever's in the news, and I don't make the stories up. The only thing that might have changed is that I don't give away the title. I don't give away the content story in the title. That might be it. But I'm sure Sean's become clickbait. There's nothing that's changed in my content. I always go for a walk with my dog, and I always tell you what's in the transfer news, views, and clues. The only thing that's changed is that I've got a little bit more creative with my thumbnails. It's outrageous slander, and I love you for it. I love the aggro. New member for the show. Thank you, Paul. How you doing, mate? Welcome to the team. Looking forward to getting to meet you on the next fan show. That last night's fan show, man. That was a 4-hour marathon. I don't know if you saw any of it, mate. There was some wild takes in there. Loved it. It was really enjoyable to get to meet everybody. But thanks, Paul. Hope to meet you on the next one, mate. And Andy Lester, super sticker. I can't see the super sticker, but you've already said that you're not sure. You didn't mean to hit the emoji, whichever emoji you put in. You said you like the show. So, but thank you very much for the super sticker. Mate, let's move on then, right, to what this summer looks like. So we got this, we're 40 minutes in, and I put the title out saying record transfers in and out. Now, there's loads of stories out today. I've got the... I'm going to tell you right now, we've got Give Me Sport. We've got words from Fabrizio Romano. We've got the Boot Room, who, by the way, should be elevated. The Boot Room should 100% be elevated to a different tiered level than it's currently thought of. It's currently amongst the fan base or the general football community considered to be like clickbait aggregator that doesn't know what they're talking about. Graham Bailey absolutely knows what he's talking about. Almost, or probably far more than some of the guys at Caught Offside or Give Me Sport that put out more exclusives than Bugsy Malone's OnlyFans account. We've got things from 442, and we've got articles from Spurs Web as well that are referencing other places about Matisse Tell. But listen, the general theme here, mate, is that we're going to get, apparently, a record transfer, a new record transfer, a new club's highest earner. The club's highest earner may be from Romero's contract extension, or it might be from a top draw player. That player isn't going to be Leroy Sané. We were linked with him all for the last few weeks. He ended up going to Galatasaray, of all places. Turkey seems to be like a Turkey like somehow getting Saudi money on the sly, mate, because they're starting to really draw some big names out to Turkey, aren't they? What's going on out in Turkey?
It looks a bit suspicious. It must be all the hair transplant that's going on. There must be a lot of money sat in the country because of the amount that are going over there.
Yeah, every single player that goes over there comes back with a new set of teeth, full head of hair, and some butt implants or whatever. Yeah,
I'm sure Maddison was out there this summer. I'm sure he was. I've seen his hair definitely getting better. So maybe that's where it's all coming from.
But we got new a record transfer coming in, and then we've also got apparently a record transfer going out. Not in terms of one sale, but in terms of the amount of money we might be able to bring together, and that most likely is predicated on the option of, well, definitely. I mean, Sonny has definitely came out. Let's start with him, mate. Sonny has definitely, intimated. I'll bring up the quote in a second, but he basically came out and said in Korean, which can always be loosely translated a little bit weirdly, but he basically came out and said that he doesn't know where he's going to be, but wherever he's going to end up, he'll work it, he'll do his best and work really hard. So to me, that's the kind of loosest lips I've ever seen from him in terms of being open-minded towards a new venture. And in all likelihood, Saudi is the people that are going to put up the money. Saudi would benefit from it because of the Korean fans that would fill up their stadiums, no doubt. They'd also obviously benefit from having a huge brand. He'd make generational wealth, and hopefully Tottenham would get more money from that sale than we would from selling him anywhere else. So what's your general take on Sonny, mate? How do you is it a good time to sunset the story?
Yeah, I mean, what a way to go out. The amount of criticism he got, when you actually look at the numbers were pretty impressive this year again. But he didn't pass the eye test on loads of occasions, and now he's won the trophy. Is it just the perfect time to just say, right, that's end of that now? You've got a new manager coming in. It's one of them. I suppose it depends on where he wants to go. I know that obviously it does seem that it seems to be the most that he's other than the summer. I think after he came, he wanted to leave and he kind of sat down with Poch and said, look, I need to go. But since he's actually got into the team, it definitely seems like he's kind of at the thing. I actually think that probably comes from last year, because I think there was a lot of rumours around we activated the year extension, but we didn't offer him fresh terms, and I think he seemed to be a little bit disappointed by that. Yeah. But again, it's what sort of club do you want to be? Do you want to become a ruthless club that is competing year after year, or do you want to sit there and kind of loyalty dictates? If we're going to go and sign, I don't want to say some of the names because I'm sure we'll bring them up, but say we go and sign 2 top wingers, do we need to have Son in around? Probably not. The money will do us well. As you said, he could benefit. So it's time to go. But if we're then going to not go and sign anyone, would Son be able to play a part? He would for sure. So a lot of it is dependent on who comes in. But I think it would be a good time for all parties if we was to replace him well.
How much? I know it's probably foolish to sort of speculate, maybe just a quick little thought process here. What do you reckon is the sort of money that you could come on? Bearing in mind that the guy brings in, I think he sells more shirts. Yeah, I think he sells more shirts than everybody else at the club combined every year. But I don't think Tottenham or any football club make massive money from shirt sales. I think they make decent money. But I think the vast majority, especially because I think Tottenham signed a fucking atrocious deal, a long-term deal with Nike in COVID. And I think it was like a 25-year deal or something that was locked in at certain margins. And I think we probably make like less than 10% on a shirt. So if you're selling a shirt for £100, you're only making £9 or whatever. Now, obviously, maybe that's not even, maybe it's less than that. I don't know. But, he does sell a lot of shirts, obviously, into the Korean market. When you go to the game, do you go to the games often, mate? You're a season ticket holder or anything?
No, not as often as I'd like. I've got 2 little ones at home and that, so I don't get to go as often as I'd like. But you can see it. There's always, it's like pandemonium when he's there. He's like the David Beckham of that world, isn't he? So, sure. But you can flip that both ways and say what sort of fee would we command, but then also what fee would he command? What other people would buy him for because of that commercial input? Yeah, he doesn't do do shirts in terms of what you make from that, but the amount of merchandise opportunities that we have with your Son Cup and your Son this and your Son that, it just, so I think around 30-40 million. I think if you got that, they'd consider. Anything less than that, it's probably like, again, we talk about bringing in a replacement. Are you going to be able to go and get someone, or do we think that we've got the squad to be able to handle a loss of him anyway? And then there is the leadership part of it. I mean, we was lacking leaders this year. If we sell another one, what's going to happen? I don't really feel like many clubs bring in new signings and they automatically become a leader unless it's someone who is like a proper born leader. I think you will go, and I think that there won't be a new contract. I think it will be a case of we'll turn around and say to him, it's up to you what you decide. But it'd be interesting. He's never really spoke about where he wants to finish. I know he said he will finish at Spurs, but you always get like I think it was Romero and I think Di Maria's just recently gone back home to his hometown club, and a lot of clubs that they kind of say, right, this is where I want to go. So like a Hamburg sort of thing. He's never really said that. So it all depends on what his motivation is, I guess. If he wants to stay in and around European football, if he really believes. But I think that there's been enough of a sample size now to suggest that he is on the decline. And unless he's used in a very particular set of circumstances, I'm worried that he's going to keep getting worse, unfortunately.
Do you think there's any merit? Obviously, we're speculating here, or I'm not even sure if this would be plausible, but part of that deal that Daniel Levy could strike would be to say, we'll sell him to you for 30 million quid, but give us 25% of his shirt sales in Saudi Arabia for the lifetime of his contract, to get that kind of, like, you know what I mean? Like, no sell on value, but a little bit of like pocket money from the shirt sales. There will be something, even if it's something along the lines of we come out there and play a friendly against him in, I don't know, we'll probably knowing us, we'll probably do it on like a Monday after a Sunday game, to be honest, just to earn a few quid. But we'll come out there, we'll play, and we get. I think we done it for was that not Solomon, where basically we played a game and they got all of the proceeds for it or whatever. Yeah. Something along them lines where it's not just as straightforward, unless it's something like for PSR reasons, you can have him for like 50, 60 million or something stupid like that, and they come in and they offer a ridiculous amount of money. But if we offer a fair amount, there will be something a little bit more. Where even it will be, I know we've done like a partnership deal with Real Madrid where they took Bale, pretended they were going to be a partner to us, and then never utilized that link ever again. But there will be something. It won't just be a straight transfer, I don't think. Yeah, well, Daniel Levy might be the master of like contracts and or like commercial stuff, but he leaves a lot to be desired with these loopholes in these contracts for players, doesn't he? Like
look at Cardoso, mate. The Cardoso one is unbelievable, by the way.
I think that's actually true. And when I saw that, I was like, there's no chance that that's true. And if it is true, then I'm sorry, like Bozo of the Year award goes to Daniel Levy for doing that one. But it fucking is true. It's true. How can you believe that loophole in the contract? What an absolute muppet.
Anyway. So you're saying that if he doesn't come, we get nothing? Yeah. Yep. Sign me up for that, sir. Yes, that's brilliant.
Wait, all he's got to do is reject us when you approach, and then we haven't got to pay you fuck all. Okay, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Literally, it's just as I say, there is a lot to be desired, and maybe it's just purely because he doesn't have a full understanding of just how the football game works. Yeah. Maybe he understands all the financials and he knows how to build and everything else. Would you? And this is pure speculation, but if Paratici was running that deal, would Paratici have left the loophole like that? I think he's just too involved to be able to leave that sort of thing. Because the only way you'd have left that is if you would have signed the deal and had it all tied up, where it was Spurs only have to trigger. Like, like they do the obligations and things like that. It's almost like you agree the contract now, and if we want it, we sign you, and you don't have a say in it anymore because you've already agreed that contract previously. Just a real strange one.
Absolutely, mate. And to be honest, it's one of those things that, like, I don't think. I mean, I know Lubo, who's a massive Levy outer, like, reminds me of that. But I don't think that the Levy outers on Twitter are quite aware of like how much of a fucking idiot that makes him look. Because if I was part of the Levy out crowd, that's like a significant chink in the armor of the Levy in kind of debate. I shouldn't say that out loud because I get stuck into them too often.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm glad you said it's on your channel, because on anyone else's, there's absolutely no way you can say that.
Mate, most of the people on this chat are Levy out anyway. Now, I think that my chat is. I'd hope that my chat is full of more like logical people who are just interested in chewing over both sides of a conversation and don't really have too many kind of like, I'm 100% can't be shaped on a certain topic, because I like to be open-minded, and I hope that you kind of, when you put that thing out there, you hopefully people come and resonate that feel the same way. Guys, there's 1,150 people here. Massive numbers for Wednesday. Love to see it. Please smash the like button. I asked you at the start, right? Luke had got to 602 subs. I said, can we get him to 700? He's at 663. He's had 63 subs. Can we get another 40 subs? There must be 40 of you that haven't smashed it. And then once we get to 700, we're going to move the goalpost like we do in the YouTube world, and we're going to add another 50 to the category. But
I changed the name, but I do this all the time, and it's also about liking a video. So if you're Levy at, then like the video and sub, and if you Levy in, we'll like it and sub as well. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah. We've covered everyone. So
yeah, we should be on 500-600 likes, guys. We get 50% ratios for sure. Mate, let's. Okay, so we spoke about Sonny as this is part of the pot, right? So that's if we're going to look for a record sales summer, I think the record summer sales 120 million. I think that was the Bale year. So we found 40 million of it. Now, before we bring any sort of, I think what I'd like to do is kind of like cover areas of the pitch in one go. So let's stick at the top end. The Man or Solomon debate rages on. Now, Johnny, who's on the channel all the time, is a massive advocate. Adrian's a massive advocate. Lubo's a massive advocate of bringing this guy back. They are also massive advocates of the notion that we don't have anywhere near enough wingers. Solomon was bottom of the pecking order of the main players because that's what, he must have been, because that's why he got loaned out, or maybe it's because of his injuries and whatever else. Now they want to bring him back based on his championship form, but are also saying that we need to bring in two wingers in some of the names we're going to talk about, as a Semenyo, whatever else. Where do you stand on Solomon, mate? I mean, I don't know what value you think we can get for him. Leeds have got an owner that said that they want to spend whatever they can. So, is there a price point where you go, nah, it's not worth it, let's bring him back and see what you can do? And is there a level that above a certain price point, you're like, I don't care what you can do, take that because we need to go and get better anyway?
Yeah, I think it's much of a muchness. He's definitely not a player where you go, well, you need to keep him around. I wouldn't say he's terrible, but I think we've got a load of players that are a sort of similar level, and you would hope that the younger players have got a higher ceiling. So for me, if we get 15 million, because again, we might not go into it today, but the amount of registration rules, the amount of homegrown issues that we've got, we can't just be having a player there that's all right. We need to really be getting top players in, and then he's just one that for me doesn't. So, and I'm not dumbing down the championship, but for every name, and I watch your channel quite a lot, so I see Johnny quite frequently defending him, and he does give the names of players that have been there and then stepped up. But there's hundreds that have been there and not stepped up.
Yeah, I know. I love Johnny, but that's such a specious reasoning, right?
Yeah.
Well, what about Ali? Ali did it.
Nathan Ealinton. All right. Nathan Ealinton was my favourite. He got something like 32 goals in the Championship, came to the Premier League, got one. So he got, and this is not to dull down his name at all, but Josh Brownhill scored more goals and assists than him this year. So
really?
I'm not saying, yeah, Josh Brownhill got something like 23, I think it was, 24 goals and assists this year. So
he's on a free transfer, Josh Brownhill, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
He's not a bad little player, I don't think. He reminds me a little bit of John McGinn.
Yeah, but again,
stocky, strong, not a bad dribbler, but can put in a spicy tackle.
You've just said attributes where it's a more combative midfielder, and he outscored and out-assisted Solomon. So that it all has to be in context. On my channel, I actually reached out to all of the different loan clubs to find out what them kind of fans, because it's easy. Again, Johnny, I'm not saying he hasn't. He probably has watched games of Solomon, but it's easy to look at some stats and go, "Cool, he looks good." He's So I reached out to went to Orient, QPR, and Leeds as well, and the Leeds fan was like, he was superb. He had a bit of a dip, but he was superb towards the end, and we'd love to take him back. I think if you get 15 million for him, but again, it all comes down to, are you going to reinvest it and go elsewhere? So, but for me, he's not going to start. And I'm sick and tired of bolstering our squad. I think you mentioned it on the show earlier with Savar. Let's go and improve the 11, and then the 11 players that are currently there, they then become the squad, and then the squad players, they can go, because I'm sick and tired of keep just improving a squad and having much of a muchness.
So what are we saying then? Like, do you reckon we can squeeze 20 million out of Leeds for him?
I reckon it'd probably be something like a 15 mil, and if you stay up, an extra 5 or something like that. I think if you can get 15, 20 million, I think you'd take it. And then push that money onto an Eze or a Semenyo or whatever.
So what we're going to do is we're going to stick to the top end of the pitch then. On that basis, let's look at the incomings, right? Because everyone's screaming for a winger.
Yep.
Maybe a creative play. I don't know if you think of Eze as a 10 or a winger. I'll come to that in a second, but Eze seems to be his name just won't leave Tottenham's lips, and it's going to be an expensive deal. Mm-hmm. I hope it's not going to drag on and on and on. And I hope that if you get a Semenyo in, and that's the other name, right? So just to let you know, guys, this isn't clickbait. So Fabrizio Romano said in his Give Me Sport newsletter that Semenyo is appreciated, yes, but at the moment it's still early for a negotiation, and Bournemouth will try to keep him. I mean, I don't know if we can read too much into that. There's nothing really there. Like, yes, he's appreciated by Tottenham, but Bournemouth, I mean, obviously, I think we could all say that pretty confidently. He's a top player. Stanley Cush here. Shout out to you, Stanley. Hope you're okay, mate. He's saying 70 million for Semenyo is nuts. That is apparently the kind of asking price, right? 50 million is what he's valued at on transfer market. You do have the complication of the fact that he is a Ghana international, and so I don't think Ghana qualified for the African Cup for January, but 2 years down the line, if he's still a Tottenham player, you've got him leaving for a month. What's your thoughts on Semenyo, mate? Is he can play off the left? He's according to transfer market at least, he's a left winger. But when I've looked at him in detail, and I fucking love the Y Scout. And by the way, I got some permission today to allow to use the Y Scout tool in real time on the channel. So I can't show the footage that's attached to Y Scout, but we can use the data to identify gems together as a community. So look forward to that. That's coming next week. But Semenyo to me doesn't look like a left winger. For me, his best bits are off the right. His drive, he's cut in, he's 2-footed, he can pot shot from distance, drives his foot through the ball, Luke. But he finds the corner more times than he doesn't. It's never just a hit and hope. I think there's so much to like about him, but 70 million quid is a fuck of a lot of money for a player, isn't it?
But it's the going rate, isn't it, now? I remember a few years back, if you offered 50, you probably signed them, whereas now 70 seems to be the sort of number. And if you want to be serious, and we're obviously discussing it now, if we can get players out the door, then it's almost like, right, okay, so all right, he's 70 million, but if you sold a Solomon for 20, and then you got, I don't know, 10 million for Gill, would you take them 2 and 40? It's what game you play, isn't it? So if you think he's the one that's going to improve, then yeah, I think we do need one. I think that's the bottom line. I think unless we can go out and we can sign someone who's probably not been as spoken about, you're paying that extra bit on the Premier League. My big thing for him is just simply the fact how many players Bournemouth are going to lose, and they just do they need to even entertain? And you got this whole thing. He's never worth that. Well, he is. I always said for Kane, I said I wouldn't sell Kane for anything less than 150 million. And I'm not saying he's worth 150 million. I'm saying that's what he is to us. Yeah. So 100%. And if they sell Kirkes, Mbeumo, Kirkes, who else is gone?
Hoyson,
as Zabani apparently
Zabani's
as well. PSG.
Hoyson's gone to Real Madrid. They might even be selling Justin Kluivert as well. So around him. So
you're going to just sit there and say, look, give us one more year. Next year you can go for your 60 million or whatever. but I just don't feel like they're going to entertain it unless you offer them a stupid amount. So, I would take him because I think we need him, or we need that sort of player. And if it costs you, it costs you. Then we shouldn't have made so many mistakes in previous years.
Assuming that Mbumo's going to United, which it all intents and purposes looks like he is.
Yeah.
Is there another right winger? Well, first of all, if we sell Solomon and Son, and then let's just, because we've got 11 wingers, right? So we count them down. Odebear stays, Johnson stays.
Yep.
On the left, I mean, let's just assume that Matisse Tell goes. Decky stays, who can play on the wing. Let's just say Richie stays. That Yang goes on loan. That Mikey Moore might get a loan. Yes, Sonny's gone, and Solomon's gone. Am I right in thinking then that your four wingers at the club currently would be Odebear, Johnson, and off the left-hand side it would be. I'm missing someone. Who am I missing?
Yeah, so you got Yang will go back out. Solomon will go. You've got. I'm just going through the squad now. Odebear, Johnson, Kulusevski, Werner's gone. Tell, and then Richie being an option. I think that it's a massive opportunistic space at this moment in time. I think and ahhing about Richie, and ahhing about Son. It's almost like not the whole buy, sell before you buy, but it's almost like who do you? It's like shifting plates sort of thing. So you could argue that Richie is a left winger, and we need to go and get a striker. You could say, well, actually, he's a striker, and then he could be. But yeah, Bakayoko was one, and I think you kind of do that whole thing that we do probably too often, is you go and sign a winger that can also play up front. I mean, and also the other part of that is
just a master of one would be great. You know,
what sort of system is Frank going to go with? Is he going to sit there and go to his old style three at the back, because our system, our players, you could argue, suit that? Is he going to kind of go to his 4-2-3-1, which is what he's been playing recently? So then Kulusevski probably comes out of being a winger. He probably comes into the cam position, so therefore frees up the wing. So I think it's really interesting, and I think a lot of it does depend on the outgoings. But some of the names being mentioned, I've been saying quite a lot. I think we should definitely be looking at the Eredivisie. I think there's so many players there that can come in as mainly as like bolster in the sort of areas that we really need. Bakayoko's, I know you've mentioned it before about Hanko coming in. I think we should really be looking at Hato.
He's gone to, Hato's fucking insane left back. He's so good. Ajax left back of top draw.
Yeah. I've gone off topic there, haven't I?
No, not at all. No, not at all. No, it's fine. We just go on weaves. That's what we do. With regards the left-right wing, like, so do you want someone that is a master of one, or and if so, what position? Where do you need the help? Like, if you've got Johnson or Odebear off the right, is a left winger more important if you're going to sell Sonny? Because Solomon could do a bit of both. Or if you're keeping Richie, then is that where he's going to end up? And then we need to go and get a striker. Like, what's the priority? And also don't forget that Kulusevski is apparently out until the end of the year, maybe even January, February with his knee. Apparently his knee's an absolute mess.
Yeah,
and Maddison's not going to make the start of the season either. So we're starting the season currently without a 10. Now Odebear was sort of tested in the 10. I didn't really love it. He's clearly a winger to me, but and Mikey Moore I don't think's ready. So like for me, I'm like, is Eze to me sort of ticks the most boxes in that regard, or someone like a Pedro Gonçalves who was willing to go to Manchester United if Bruno went to Saudi. Now, Bruno didn't go to Saudi, so that deal's off. But if Pedro Gonçalves was going to go to the Premier League, was he going to go because he wanted to go to the Premier League, or was he going to go to United because he wanted to hook up with Amorim, his old boss?
Yeah, I think I don't know what it is. I think Eze he just screams Tottenham. He's just the most Tottenham-like player who obviously hasn't played for Tottenham. So I think he would tick a lot of boxes. I think if you brought him in, I think he could play in different ways. So if if we do go to the kind of, it's almost like an Amarim sort of system where you got 2 10s behind the striker, he could play in there. I think if we go 4-2-3-1, he could play off the left. He could also play in the centre as well. Semenyo, again, he would cover the left, the right, and you could probably even play him up front as well with the pace and the power that he's got. So I don't think we'll go and get a specialist. My thing is, if you go off this year, Decky seems to have come away from the right-hand side, and I think that Brennan Johnson will become a very, very good option if he's coming off the bench and we go and get someone who starts in his position. And then the left-hand side, again, you mentioned about Oliver, a lot of people think that he's more of a left winger than he is a right winger. So again, I feel like we probably need to go and get someone that starts there. I think we said it just before we started, but if you can go and get Mbeumo, Eze and Semenyo together and virtually sell off any other sort of wingers that we've got with the youngsters coming through, I think that would be ideal. But again, it all comes down to who you can shift. I know you've got your famous saying about Richie.
He is, though, isn't he? He is. Like, he refuses to go. I don't think, is there anyone? Let me ask it. I'm going to put a poll out, actually, mate. I want to put a poll out. Is there anybody in the Tottenham fan base how do I do this? Poll this bad boy. Is Richie a cock block? There you go. I think he doesn't want to go, and I think that he's holding us back a little bit. I really do. Guys, just quickly, 1,130 people still here. Love to see it. Please smash the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe on this one. Go up into the chat. The top of the chat pinned, there's the link for Football Inc., which is my second channel with Johnny H. At 8:45 in half an hour's time, if you're still here at the end, and I hope you will, then I'm going to transition us straight over to Football Inc., where we're going to be talking about all of the latest in the world of football, and also go into a bit more detail into that Manchester United accounting expose, which is fucking obscene that Kieran Maguire just sort of put it down as a side note. For me, it's the biggest reason why they can do what they can do. And it's outrageous that hasn't come to light. You know, everyone else, like if I'm a Chelsea fan, I'd be like, how is it we always get the mud? How is it we're always getting blamed? Yes, we do it, but it's not like we're the only one. You know, it's like Lance Armstrong cheating at the in the Tour de France, right? Every other fucker was doing it as well, but because he was the most successful at doing it, he's the one who got the mud. But it wasn't like it. There was no one that was clean in that game. And anyway, so we'll talk about that 8:45. So please hang around, but make sure you smash that link to the Football Inc. and hit the subscribe over there on the march to 2K. And that channel's growing nicely. But let's do a little update. Let's see where we're getting to on Spotlight on Spurs. We gave the target of 700. At last count, we're at 679 subscribers. We need 21 more of you that haven't already done it to help Lukey out. I'm hoping you're loving Luke. I think he's been absolutely brilliant today so far. Luke, I think you've been a sensation, mate. We'll be first of many with you, mate, for sure. Please, if you are enjoying Luke's takes, then just look up in the little thing there. The Spotlight on Spurs is his channel. Get him over 700. The first 1,000 are the hardest. The first 1,000 is always the hardest. Ask Bonnie Blue. Lukey, let's...
After that, she's flying.
What's that?
After that, she's flying.
She's flying, yeah, 100%. She's flying on something for sure. Crazy stuff. Right, let's move down the pitch then, mate. Midfield stuff, right? So there's a lot of names here that might be on this list of people that are putting out this record transfer outgoings. Bissouma, Bentancur, so far struggling to get a new contract signed. Bissouma and Bentancur are the main two, and obviously Pape Sarr, which is a bit of an enigma because I don't know how people feel about Pape Sarr. In fact, I'm going to do a poll on that one once I get the cock block answer. Where do you see us generating money? What's your thoughts on our midfield? I take it you're okay with Berghvall, but what about the rest? Any interest in the rest of them?
Yeah, I mean, Bissouma's a real tough one because I could see Bissouma doing well under a sort of Frank, but he's had so many chances, and people talk about Ange's tactics made him flawed, but Conte didn't want him. Conte said his discipline on the pitch is just not good enough. Ange has already spoken about things like when he turns around and says to him, I need you to really step up, and the next day he's late for training and that. I just don't know whether his head's really there enough. He was one when we signed him, I thought, yes, we've got a dominant midfielder now that can really push on, and he's just never really hit the heights. So I feel like if the option's there, he's definitely someone who would take the whole Saudi job as well. I think he'd love it out there. I think he'd absolutely love it out there. So I would cash in it if there's a reasonable offer, and again, it's dependent on what kind of comes through the door as well. But I think that is the position where Bentancur seems to be pushing in the right direction. I know he hasn't agreed fully yet, but he seems to be the one that they want to kind of keep with the contract negotiations that have started. But again, I can actually see them both sort of working if they was to play in that too, which is why it was so frustrating. Ange persisted on not playing them like that, and you kind of got a little bit of a glimpse of how they can develop together. But again, I think that Polinia is the one that we need to kind of get in. I think he needs to be a priority, and therefore one of them two are not really needed.
Apparently, I won't say who told me, but if you know, you know. I'm just not sure if I'm allowed to say it, but apparently there was guarantees, mate. Part of the conditions of Thomas Frank saying yes to Tottenham was that the priority for him is obviously a winger, but the non-negotiable was to bring in a six.
Yeah,
don't know what that looks like, but one of the stories that's out today is from Gazette Live. I don't know where that is from. I think it's a Middlesbrough. It's a local Middlesbrough newspaper, I think, the Middlesbrough Gazette or the North East Gazette or something. And they're saying that Tottenham are preparing a £20 million move for Middlesbrough star Hayden Hackney once Thomas Frank is confirmed as the new boss. Now, Hayden Hackney's a player, Luke, that we've been linked to for probably over a year, maybe 14 months. Yeah. Gives me a little bit of Adam Wharton vibes, if I'm honest. We missed out on Adam Wharton, didn't need to. I wonder if Tottenham are looking at that one and then thinking, I'm not going to let this happen again. Joe Bellingham was a name that we were linked with for a long time. He ended up moving to Sunderland and now he's subsequently gone to Dortmund to follow in his brother's footsteps. Are Tottenham going to be looking into the Championship for another one? And just because it worked out for Adam Wharton, does it mean it's going to work out for Hayden Hackney? I'm going to get his stats up in a second. Are you familiar with Hayden Hackney? What's your take on the player?
No, I've seen that we've been linked from him for a while, and I've seen that Middlesbrough fans have been saying how good and how top level he's going to become. I can't say I've seen him enough to be able to gauge an opinion whether he can step up. But again, we're going down the whole stats and looking at the data, and if it suits and it's matching up, then a lot of people said the same thing about Wharton, that he would. I think his physicality and the way he got about the pitch was the only thing that was really sort of questioned before he stepped up. But again, there's ways that you can utilise him in a midfield where that's not even a problem. So, it's one of them. I feel like I've been saying we need to go and get experience, and then a lot of the players that I say we should probably go and get are on the younger side or don't really have the Premier League experience. So I kind of contradict myself anyway. But he's definitely one that, if he does hit the ground running, everyone goes, well, everyone knew he was going to be top class. Why didn't you go and get him?
100%, mate. These are the stats for Hayden Hackney. I mean, green bars galore and everything you'd like to see from a midfielder that's box to box and that can do a little bit of everything. His passing stats are out of this world. Now, this isn't compared to the top 5 leagues for what it's worth. This is compared to the top 14 leagues the next 14 leagues. So right. you have like, this doesn't include comparisons to the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga, and I think Ligue 1. I think they're the 5. But it is comparable to, so this is Championship stuff, but it's comparing it to the next 14 leagues that obviously includes basically the top leagues in most of Europe and the Championship that's in there as well. And like I say, he's a well-rounded baller of a player, amazing passer, bit feisty as well. He's cultured. For a young guy, he's cultured. And I don't mind it, but if he is, I mean, he's 22 years old, right? I don't mind it at all. He looks a bit like Jack Grealish, doesn't he? Jesus Christ, look at that. It's just like Jack. It's like fat Grealish or whatever we call him. You know, it's a bit like you as well, to be honest, Luke. If I'm telling you, mate.
I've chopped off the ear. I had a
little bit of Grealish about you, haven't you? You've got a little bit of Grealish about you, mate.
I wish I had his money, mate. I know that much.
Yeah. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Yeah, 100%. He's let me know in the chat what you guys think about. I mean, Hayden Hackney, for me, mate, it's one of those. It's one of those stories where, like, I'm fine if it's a spray and play, right? If we can go and sell, Bissouma. If Pape Sarr does go, I don't know. I want to ask you about Pape Sarr in a second, because for me, I think he's such a weirdly unique player. I just don't know what to make of him. I don't know what system he fits in. I don't I know what he's good at. I know what he's bad at, and I don't know if he should be better at the things that he's bad at than he is, or if it's just bad coaching, or if he's just sloppy minded. I don't know. If you can sell Solomon, you can sell Son, and you can sell one or two of these midfielders, then and possibly players like Alejo Veliz and those sorts of kind of like scrappy ones that aren't going to make it anywhere. Brian Hills that are going to be going at the end of the month. Then if you can get what you want in the wingers and you get a monster midfielder, I'm more than happy to see Hayden Hackney come in. But if Hayden Hackney's the answer to our midfield issues, it's a fucking risk again. And I don't want to see it.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that because Frank obviously really liked Gray, and then you've got Gray, you've got Berghvall. For me, we don't need another. I know he's 22, so he's a bit older, but for me, we need to then bring the experience with that. So. Again, I'm not against it, and again, it could be someone that your Brentfords and your Brightons go and pick up, and then everyone goes, well, this is exactly like Walton, why didn't we go and get him? But I feel like he's going to have to hit a lot of the markers for them to really go in, because as I say, when you've got your Gray and you've got Berghvall, how many more youngsters do we want to kind of have in them positions? They need the experience alongside them. So, again, not against it, but again, quite a lot of caveat to all of this is we need to go and improve the 11. And if we go and improve the 11 and he's the option after, absolutely fine with. If he's the option, then we need to be targeting something better.
Yeah, 100%, mate. 100%. I'm from the Sava school of thought with these sorts of ones. Like, he says, £10 million for these untested players. I think £10 million doesn't get you doesn't get owners out of bed these days. So I'm with him on the principle that you spend big where you need to, and then if you fancy a couple of if you've got the money left over, you have one maybe two maximum a year, like a Yang or whatever that cost you 5 million, Berghvall that cost you 10, turn out to be a crazy success. I think we overpaid for Archie Gray. I said it at the time. And great, I think he's going to be a good player. Needs to get in the gym. In fact, let me ask you this, because I want to ask, because we got another 20 minutes before we're going to move into the defence, and we still got to talk about some of these players that are coming in. But just to finish off the midfield thing, Pape Sarr and Archie Gray for me are two players I'm not sure what to do with. I had massive high hopes for Archie Gray. I'm not writing him off. I think he's going to be a proper player, but there's something about him that I think he needs to get in the gym. I think he needs to put on like a stone in muscle, and sharpish. And I also think he needs to get a little bit more bite in him. I don't think he's got that kind of Berghvall-esque fearlessness about getting stuck in.
Apparently he has. There was an interview done by Patrick Bamford, and he actually trained with the first team when he was 14. Wow. And he was involved afterwards. I think it took till 15 until but he said in the first training session, he said he just went round and absolutely smashed people. And he said it weren't like, I want to show you that I'm ready to be up. He was like, that's just him playing football. Like, he just absolutely loves it. But I agree. I think that he needs to be a little bit more battle hardened. And I think that if we was to have, obviously we're in the Champions League this year, but if it was to be a Europa League campaign this year, it would be a real good kind of getting him in the midfield where he should be playing sort of situation. And again, I wouldn't be completely against him going out on loan if we bring in the right players that are coming in that position. But we've just got so many. I keep saying it. We get our priorities completely the wrong way around. We need to go out and do the priorities and then worry about that sort of stuff afterwards. So it could be that if we go and get all the business done in the midfield and then an option comes up, Leeds, Gray going there on loan, I think would be absolutely unbelievable for his development. But we've got so many other priorities that we need to worry about first before we can start even worrying about that. And going back to what you're saying about the numbers, that's exactly it. You mean you've got your Gray at 40, you've got Odebear at 25 and Valise at 15. Just go and sign someone for 70 million and then sign two guesses at 10 million each, and then all of a sudden you spent the same money, but you've got some sort of guarantee there as opposed to free hit and hopes, really.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. Completely agree. Who is that monster six that Thomas Frank apparently has demanded, that I've been calling for, almost as long as the Bible? The Bible said it 2,500 years ago. I've been saying it for almost as long. It's something that Tottenham Hotspur have completely overlooked. Arteta gets the short end of the stick correctly for sort of disregarding the striker role.
Yeah.
I think that we don't give anywhere near enough criticism to the club for overlooking the need for a monster six. Bissouma wasn't the guy. We all thought he was the guy. Turned out he wasn't. For whatever reason, in moments the guy's got it, but it's just not consistent enough. Okay, you fucked up, right? So let's go again. You can't rest on your laurels and then shoehorn 8s into 6s because they don't have that same mindset. I said it 100 times. A 6's job is to sneak out and to sniff out danger and threats. An 8's job is to sniff out opportunity. It's two completely different mindsets. And if you've grown up, not that I've ever played football, but if you're doing anything in life, if you've grown up as a salesman and then you're asked to become an account manager, I've seen it happen in the world that I've operated in. Salesmen who become account managers because they're not good enough at sales, but they still think they are a salesman in their DNA. They end up trying to sell from the account manager role, and it ends up with conflict. It ends up with problems. And I think it's the same in football. So I guess it's the same in football that, if you've grown up thinking about, I've got to get forward here. I've got that kind of edge in me.
Yeah,
it's instinctive. And I think that Bentancur this season, him playing as the deeper lying 6 allowed Berghvall to thrive and flourish. Bentancur was only very good when he had Bissouma behind him, who gave him that protection. But we need to go again. So, what does that look like to you in a dream world scenario? Are you okay getting someone like a Morten Højlund from Sporting, and they're going to charge big money because they always get every drop of value out of Premier League? Are you okay? You getting like a Victor Froholt, who's obviously a bit of a spray and play? I think he'll be a good player from what I've seen, but that's a risk. Obviously, it's an unknown. Are you okay? Obviously, you said you're not okay with Hayden Hackney necessarily coming in as the big one. Adam Water's not going to happen.
No.
Palhinha, I don't know. Where would you go? Edison, Edison's not even a 6 either. He's an 8 that just can do it. Same with like a Douglas Luiz, an 8 that can do it. But is that what you want? What do you want?
I think going back to the difference between the 6 and the 8 is the front foot and the back foot. That's the simple facts of it. If a ball's coming across and it's kind of a line splitting from right centre to left centre, if you're a player that tries to win that ball and jump in front, then you're more of an 8, and therefore you don't worry about what's behind you. I'm less concerned, and I use the term as well about Monster 6. I'm less concerned now because I think defensively that was imperative in an Ange system, a defensive player that can operate in them defensive areas. I think that the likelihood is that Thomas Frank will have us better defensively, so we won't have to have that single isolated player there. So I'm less worried about that, but I still think we need a better sort of defensive midfielder. So I think Palhinha is probably the one that makes the most sense from a footballing aspect. From a Spurs aspect, it doesn't because of the age.
And then did you play him in a double pivot, but you give him the more of the kind of lower lying of the two?
Yeah.
And then who plays next to him? Berghvall or Bentancur?
I think it will be dependent on what's required from the game, and it also depends on who's playing in front. I mean, if you've got if you go and sign an Eze or even Maddison's playing there, you kind of just put them up the pitch and say, listen, we'll do all what we need to down here, and you kind of crack on up there and score us the goals and win us the game. So I think it will be very much dependent on, and people ain't going to like this, but I can't see us playing the same 11 players week in, week out. I think there's going to be an odd change here or there. Midfield particularly will probably be one of them. So I think it depends on what sort of game there is. And Palhinha probably isn't going to play week in, week out neither. Again, when you're starting to play against the kind of the lower level teams, you could probably get away with putting a Bentancur in there with a Berghvall. So I think Palhinha is probably the one that makes the most sense, as I said. I'm not against Douglas Luiz. I think he's a good player. There's potential. He could even just be a loan deal. But when we talk about, and we've spoken about it loads already, about budget, if you've got £100 million and that's all you've got, would you go and spend your 80 million on your Højlund or your Walton, or would you rather go, no, actually Palhinha's 30 million and that frees up 70 for Eze? So it depends on where this money is going to be split. I don't want to be doing where we've got 100 million and we go and sign 3 decent players at 30. I'd rather us go and sign the one for 70 and then we pick up one more for 30 or something like that. So I think that's a big dependent on what goes out as well. I believe has been mentioned this in the chat loads. We're not going to pay that amount of money. And if we do, we then won't have the money to go and get a Semenyo or an Eze. And then are we then going to go into the season going, why did we not go and sign a Belieber and and that's because we spent so much on the 6.
But if we've got like, even just on a sort of on a dilutive, very conservative approach, if the budget was like 70 million, I think it should be, by the way, but if it was because of covenants and things that none of us will know the details of, then on top of that, you're raising 40 from Sonny, 15, 20 from Solomon, maybe 15 from Bissouma. That's 60 million. Then maybe another 5 from Valiz, 65, the Hill money, the Højbjerg money, all that stuff. Take away the 15 we probably just had to spend on Frank and Ange's losses. I think we just had to pay. We're going to come to the defence last now. 20 million. I think we just had to pay for Danzo. But like, if you can raise like 80 million, 90 million in sales, which would get you close to that record transfer outgoings, then you don't have to really spend 70 and 30, right? Then you should be able to spend, if you just want one winger, because you've still got 7 others in the squad. If you just get an Eze and you just go and get a Hallmund, I'm already going, that's big time. Big improvement.
100%. And I've been saying this for ages. The facts is that, as I said, we need to improve that 11. That 11 needs to improve. That's how top clubs work. They constantly look at improving their 11, whether it be a different option or whatever. But we're not at a squad level where we can go. And I said this under Poch. In the Poch era, for the wages that we paid and everything, we couldn't really upgrade the 11 that we had, because it would have meant either laying out money we didn't have or giving wages that we didn't have. We're not in that predicament in any way, shape or form. Even if you like certain players, there's ways that this 11 can be improved. And that's what we need to do. We need to start improving that, because otherwise we're just going to keep sitting there and we gradually seem to replace players and everything seems to get worse and worse. So that's exactly what I would be hoping, that we've got 150 million to be able to spend, possibly 200 million if we can get the right sales out the door and go and sign 3 £70 million players. That's exactly it. But again, are we living in a pipe dream where if you then bring in Tell comes in and we get a couple of youngsters for 20 odd million each, and then all of a sudden the budget's drained, is an 80 million on Belieber or Hodgman, is that the answer? For me, it will be maybe we go Palhinha and we go big for that. Yeah. I think they're the priorities. And when I spoke to a Brentford fan about his complete view on Frank, he said that he really thinks that he'd want to get a better goalkeeper with his feet. He said, I know it's at Tottenham. He said, I like Vicario. I think he's great at shot stopping. He said, but in Frank's system, their goalkeeper is very, very pivotal. And if you look at the last 2 they had Flecken and they had David Raya, and they were both very, very good with their feet. And he said, I think that will be an outside. He said, you've got other priorities, but that might be an outside place to look at. And does that mean
that Kinsky's got a chance then?
He said, I haven't seen enough to Kinsky to turn around and say he's going to be your number one. He went, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kinsky got a real shot, because he seemed to be quite a bit better with his feet than Vicario.
Problem with Kinsky, I think I was at the first game when he played. I think it was against Liverpool.
Sold us an absolute dream.
He did when he did that kind of like low faded golf drive out the side of his foot, and it whipped up towards Richalison. I was like, everyone around me was like, "Fucking hell!" You know, I said he made every touch he got. It was like, "Go on, big Tony Kinsky, go on, big Tone." And then, he just shit himself, didn't he? He had a collapse of confidence and he panicked against Arsenal and all that stuff, and he just had a bit of a nightmare, you know?
I said I like to be balanced. Well, after that first game with him, I was like, he's the best goalkeeper in the world. He's unbelievable, this guy. He's unbelievable, this guy. And then he just literally went, Woo.
Yeah. Even his kicking, though, after that first performance, I was like, this guy's no footsman. You know, he's no good with his feet, but... time will tell. He's 21 years old. Like goalkeepers, that's like toddler stuff, isn't it? In goalkeepers' speak, mate. Let's before I move down to the bottom end of the pitch here for the defenders and the wing backs, fullbacks. Yep. In terms of like, how would you like to see, and chat participate in this for me? Are you okay if like the second that Thomas Frank is announced, that we don't hear about too many incomings for a few weeks? As the window opens, I think it is on the like the 20th of June or something, or 17th of June, whatever. It's not long before the next window opens. Are you okay if we focus on outgoings first? Like if you see all about Sonny's about to leave, Solomon's about to leave, Brian Hill's definitely going here, and Veliz is going back to the place in South in Argentina, something central. I forget the name of it. Are you okay if Tottenham focus on outgoings first to raise the money to know what we're working with, and then we sort of put off the incomings until July? Or do you want to see us land one first, then focus on the outgoings, and then come back in for more? What's the sort of order of play that you would be okay, or preference? I mean, I think obviously everyone wants to see the incomings first, but like, would you be okay if it was outgoings first, I guess is what I'm asking.
I don't trust the system. I don't trust how we work. So I could see us getting rid of loads of players and then not signing anyone until the day before, and then it's a mediocre signing. If we've got in the board level, Paratici possibly come in, and all of the levels are fitting, and there seems to be some sort of plan, then I think that actually taking off your fan kind of perspective, we have to sell before we can buy, because again, if we flip it the other way this time and we go, right, Son's not going to be sold, and we go and we get a Palhinha, and then all of a sudden we go, oh, actually, we've got an Eze we managed to get in, and actually we've bought Palhinha now, but we could have potentially gone and got a Hodgman who's 5-6 years younger. So there has to be some sort of plan. It just feels like for us there isn't going to be. And from a content point of view, we can't have just rumours. We need to have signings, and we need to announce here he goes and everything else. So, but as long as there's a plan, as long as there's an understanding, and we're not missing out on players because we're just dragging our feet. Like if we know that Eze deal is done, but we're just keeping it there for the moment, my fear will be that other clubs will just come in and take what we think is wrapped up, and that's just typical Spurs. But I think if I was any other fan looking in, I'd be like, yeah, obviously they've got a massive squad, bloated squad, homegrown issues, club-trained issues, so you have to sell. That'll increase your budget, and then it'll allow you to then go and sign the better quality players. It makes the most sense, but I think, as I said, it's a bit...
Mate, you're one of these good looking guys, mate. I think every time you're going to come on, the chat's going to be like increasingly confident and comfortable with you, and increasingly likely to be calling you a good looking version of this, or a poor man's that.
I've been called a lot worse, mate. I've been called a lot worse. I'm a Tottenham fan who hadn't won a trophy in 17 years. I've been called everything you can imagine.
I think you look just like Jack Grealish, mate. In fact, let me ask you, listen, guys, we got 5 minutes left before I got to jump across to Football Inc. And I asked you for 700 subs for Spotlight on Spurs. We're currently at 693. 7 of you get over, get up into the pin chat. Spotlight on Spurs is there. And we need to get that up to 7 more of you to get to 700. Otherwise, this stream ain't ending. And also get over to Football Inc. Get up there. Click that link as well. I'll be over there in literally 7-8 minutes to be able to go live with Johnny. A couple of super chats quickly. Frankly, Tottenham. Frank was from last night. Good to see you, Frank. New member of the show. Good to see you, Frank. Appreciate the support, mate. Great to have you back on last night. And IMI, or IMI, I think. Luke, shouldn't it be Spotlight on Spurs spelled differently? I mean, what are we doing here, mate? What are you, the grammar police, or what?
It don't fit. It don't fit as a Twitter handle, and everything had to. I can't have different things with. So it all had to. So therefore,
OCD. So you go American. I like that. Yeah. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. Very nice. A young Ryan Mason. There you go, mate. There you go. I'm sure it'll get better than that one. Mate, let's move back to the back, right? So first and foremost, have you seen Micky van der Ven's comments last night after the Dutch game?
Yeah, I've seen different translations of it though. Some are saying that he's saying that he's not really bothered about Ange, and others are saying that he kind of is. So it depends on the translation of it, I believe.
Oh, really? Okay. I only saw one translation, and it was like, yeah, it's a bit strange to sack the guy that's just won something, and it's a decision that the players have no influence over. And to me, I'm like, what? Why are you saying that, buddy? Why are you doing that? Like, A, the guy's gone, right? B, that can be inferred, translated, lost in translation, or whatever. But if that is the translation, then comes across a little bit like he's having a dig at the top. You know, that first of all, he's maybe saying that the players should have more influence in that decision, and secondly, saying that it's strange is basically a polite way of saying it's a fucking stupid decision.
Yeah, 100%. That's what he's saying. And as I say, it's one of them again that if you use all the facts that suit your argument, then you are 100% right. And if you use all the facts that suit the other argument, then you're 100% right. I mean, as I said, the game is about winning trophies. We've won a trophy. The manager gets sacked, and we don't win trophies. So how can you? And then the other part of it is you are measured on your league form. Your league form is key to be able to show that you're going to become a better team for next year. And we weren't about that. I actually think that's where the big confusion around the whole who had a better season, Arsenal or Spurs, got really confused, because every Arsenal fan that said it kind of went, yeah, but for next year. And I was like, but that's not the question. It's not saying Spurs are in a better position next year than Arsenal because they won it. It's we had a better season because we won silverware that you didn't. That's the be all and end all. So I think it's, yeah, probably just silly is my thing. If we already had a manager, so if Frank had been announced and he said that, I think it would have gone down like a lead balloon. But the fact that we don't have one, the fact that he can say, oh, the translation of it wasn't 100%. But I do think, again, it's just a silly mood. The horse has bolted, as I said earlier. The horse has bolted. Don't back the man that's gone. Similar to me. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell everyone you're all wrong about Ange. We should have kept Ange. He's gone. It doesn't really matter. It's gone. So
yeah, 100%, mate.
Yeah, I'd say just a little bit silly but
yeah,
I do
naive,
think,
mate. Well, listen, like I say, it all depends on the translation. We don't know, but I'm sure it will come out in the wash. Romero, is he staying or is he going, mate?
I was always said he was going regardless. I don't believe. I know that the Ange outers that I'm part of, because when you're in a cult, you've got to back every single thing that happens in that cult. You can't be Ange out and say that he should have done this better. Or
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got to be 100% behind your guy.
In every single thing that he's possibly done. But I know that a lot of the Ange outers are saying, oh, like, well, he's gone now, so Romero's definitely gone. And it was like, he probably would have been gone anyway. So it doesn't really make any difference. So I'm not sure it is just on the basis that I don't know whether Atletico Madrid are actually going to cough up that money. Because when you start looking at replacements and you start looking at some of the prices that players are going for, and you think, really? So that he's going for that, then what's Romero sort of worth? But again, if we've got a planning in place where we're going out and signing someone that's going to replace him, I just don't think we would do it correctly. I think Danzo's probably the backup, and I don't see them offering enough for me to be interested. And also, if it's the money that some have said in terms of your 40 million, I think if you keep a Romero for 1 year, he's in the Champions League. He's not going to be that unhappy. It means next year he's got 1 year left. He's not going to be a £20 million player. He's still going to probably be worth 40 million. So if that's the cost, you might as well keep him a year. And then,
mate, I've got a BMW outside that I drive to Tottenham. It's a really old one. It's a 2006 M1. It's only got like 50,000 miles on the clock. And people keep saying, oh, I'll buy it off you. And I'm like, it's worth what I bought it for $2,500. It's not going to get any cheaper than that. You know what I mean? Like, so like, there's no point. I'm not going to buy anything better than that as well for $2,500. So like, there's just no point in selling it. You know, it gets to a certain valuation and it doesn't move. And I think that's the same. I completely agree with you on Romero's valuation next summer or this summer. The only problem is, are you keeping someone who's unhappy, who's already got potential, depends how you vibe with him, potential, like kind of color or form in a little bit of a, you know, I work when I want to kind of thing with regards to World Cup. He put his feet up. Just quickly though, the one big sort of story that keeps percolating around is Jared Branthwaite. In 30 seconds, Lukey, mate. First of all, does it make sense to be going after Jared Branthwaite to replace Romero, or is it like because he's a left-sided, left-footed player that would come in and compete with Micky van der Ven, and that's fine because van der Ven's a 50% of minutes guy, and he's a good player. But if you sell Romero, you need to replace a right-sided centre back, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's it. The facts is that Danzo can't be the replacement. He can be an option, but he shouldn't be the replacement. If we sell Romero, there should be a signing coming in that replaces him. And I think you're right. I don't know whether a Branthwaite would be prepared to come here and fight with Van der Ven because he's guaranteed at Everton. They're going into a new stadium. I don't really see it. And then also the sort of money you're talking about. I think we need to be worrying about the midfield and we need to be worrying about the attack before we start purchasing more centre backs.
100%, mate. Perfect way to finish. Lukey, I think we've gone through most of the squad there, mate. Look, it looks like there's a potential that the rumours could be true, that Tottenham are going to create a record transfer budget from outgoings this summer. And in terms of the incomings, we covered them, right? Eze and Semenyo, the big two. We don't know who the names are linked with for the 6. We all want Polinia, but I haven't seen any links to Tottenham for Polinia. But we have seen links for Heung. We have seen links for Hayden Hackney. We've seen links for Victor Froholt and a bunch of others. By the way, guys, as I said, I've now got permission from Y-Scout to be able to do. I can't show you the footage on Y-Scout, but we can play around together like I did 2.5 years ago before I realised I shouldn't be doing it. I've now got permission to do it. So starting either tomorrow or next week, we'll be doing Y-Scout live demonstrations where we're going to go and find some nuggets of gold that maybe we can look at for the future. That'll be fun. Mate, Luke, absolute sensational debut on the channel, mate. Especially to do it as on a one-to-one basis, mate. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Did we get over 700? Yes, we smashed it. We got 713 subs. Absolute legendary work from the chat. Guys, Lukey, what's coming up on Spotlight on Spurs, mate? Spotlight with an ITE, by the way.
With an ITE, exactly. So, so I stream every Thursday, go live around 9:30. Actually, tomorrow, we've got a massive guest. So we've got the Euro expert, the one that does sensible transfers and things like that on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
He works on behalf of The Athletic as well, I believe. So he's coming on to basically give us an all things Thomas Frank masterclass, from signings to how he thinks he'll set up with the current system that we have and everything else. So I'm really excited for that one. And then, just churning out some more content for obviously transfers that we may or may not get. We'll probably discuss some of them today and that sort of thing. But I go live every Thursday 9:30 with an array of different guests. I don't just get people on that agree with me. We like to get some differences of opinion and some debates going and trying to come up with different sort of concepts and things like that. So really appreciate it. Chat's been absolutely crazy today. I've received some compliments. Some not so nice.
As they get to know you, mate. As they get to know you, there's going to be all sorts, mate. All sorts of things said. It's going to be fun. There you go. We got Jack Grealish from Timu on the show tonight. Mate, you fucking look like it, mate. You got that guy. What's his name? Jack from Pirates of the Caribbean look as well going on. You know, what's that guy's name?
How many people? That's what we'll do. Next show, you need to come up with your best lookalike.
There you go, 100%. Guys, stay there. There's 900 people still here. Stay right where you are. We're going to move straight over to Football Inc. and we're going to talk about what's going on with Man United and all the other transfer news views includes. Massive thank you to everyone for stopping by. I'll see you tomorrow for Bugsy if you don't want to go over there. But stay where you are. Lukey, love you, man. Thanks for coming on. See you later, guys. Stay there. We'll send you over to Football Inc. Ciao.
Thank you.